I don't know.
All right, so there's no to this. I haven't done any whistles and bells drills, because really, when you're getting a bunch of kids that want to try something new, they want to learn some very, very basics so they can play a game. Kids want to play games. They want to play some kind of match. They want to play some kind of attack versus defense, especially if they already know some kind of invasion games or they already play. There's a lot of kids that already play football, that already play rugby. By the time you're really teaching any lacrosse to them, the youngest groups I do some groups that are younger than 7. I had a group this afternoon that were 5 and 6 year ones, but generally hand-eye coordination, understanding of attack and defense through different media of PE in their lessons, for example. They haven't really got that far, and even at young kids football, 5 and 6, mainly the things they go to sort of soccer schools is all on the very basics of personal skill. So the stuff here really is designed to get kids infused, and the most important thing and tool to get these kids infused is you. It's not really what you do, it's kind of how you present it, and it's the excitement you present it with, and you have to kind of ham act almost and make it exciting so the kids want to go, wow, this is great, I want to come back, I did really well. They might not have done brilliantly, but it really hooked them because it was exciting. And it was just something exciting that they got some sort of success out of.
So you should see the slides on screen there, Mike.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, just let me know when you want me to scroll down.
Yeah, I will do. So things like when you're talking, keep it brief. The kids want to play. The kids want to act. Of course, you need to tell them safety first, right? You're holding a stick in your hand now. It's a bit of an implement compared to kicking a football around, for example. So how do we hold it safely? Loose grip it with the fingers. You don't want to have a really tight fist because you get all tense through the arm. So if you're thinking about presenting this to kids, you've got to be relaxed. You've got to be able to move your hands, your wrist, your fingers, if you need to, but you need to hold the stick close to your body because you don't want to run around and poke someone in the throat. For example, first session, someone gets poked in the throat, kid gets turned off lacrosse. Maybe some parents see it because it's at club level, and they're like, oh, this is a bit dangerous. So first thing is always safety, but you want to keep it as brief as possible. Okay, so we've got the stick. We're going to hold the stick. How do we carry it? We're going to play a little traffic light game. We move around in a space that we marked out with cones, for example. Here's the ball in the stick. This is how you hold it. On green, go, because they all know green. On red, stop. They all know stop. On yellow, drop the ball with the stick and try and pick it up. So we're doing some self-exploration. I'm going to go through these broken down sessions in a minute. And what you see in the videos that I'll send to Rob is a full session of all these in about 45 minutes with a bunch of dads from the kids that I coach who have all gone, oh, we'd really like to try this. So I kind of filmed them. I asked them if they were okay to be filmed doing it. They've obviously got better motor skills. And so we went through the sessions pretty quick. And we actually got within 50 minutes to playing pretty much 6-on-6. But I was really interested to hear Walt's view on this two-man game. Because obviously one of the things we start presenting is 1v1 defense and attack. Then I put in a 2v1. Then we bring in a 2v2, two-man game. Quite good links. Although that two-man game is way further up the path, you're kind of bringing in elements already at very, very basic levels. So keep it brief, like I'm not doing right now. Keep it very brief. Get into perhaps a traffic light game. We're moving around. We're already dodging each other because we're trying to avoid each other in this square perhaps we've created, or if you're on a football pitch, in the 18-yard box, you could just make an area anywhere with some cones. You want to keep working, yellow, red, yellow, keep going, moving around. We're warming up at the same time. The kids don't even realize they're warming up because they're playing a game. So we're not jogging around the field to warm up. We're not stretching. Kids are pretty supple as it is. So let's get straight into some work with a stick. Get used to having the ball in the stick. Get used to moving in and out of people, tight spaces. Can we turn away from people? Scoop it up. And I don't ever use the language of scooping. It's just, can you pick it up with a stick? Don't use your hands. Don't use your feet. Can you pick it up with a stick? Then, so the second point here, you're letting them explore different ways. A lot of them will rake it back if they figure it out. But that's okay to start with. We're still scooping the ball up if they found a way to do it. Then sticks. What I tend to do is put the sticks down, so they're not fiddling with sticks. They're not fiddling with the ball. Bring them away from the sticks. Remember where your stick is. Remember where your ball is. And then I'll show them the basic mechanics of scooping. Right hand at the top if you're right-handed. Strong. Always go strong hand, best hand, whatever hand you brush your teeth with, whatever hand you scratch your back with, hold your pencil with. Just make all those kind of analogies so the kids are making affinities with everything you're saying. You're trying to make holding the stick, you're trying to make the lacrosse as cross-reference to everyday life almost. So they have all these different ideas to work with. And then it's the simple 3 steps. Step next to the ball with the same foot. Make sure it's the same foot as the hand that's at the top. You're making sure you're squatting, and you're making sure that both hands are coming underneath in a shoveling almost motion. This is again an analogy. Most of them have tried to shovel sand or dig mud. You're trying to make sure there's no digging. It's all shoveling, and you're going underneath. Scooping. Step, squat, scoop, as per the English lacrosse coaching manual. Yeah, okay. Making sure we're stepping next to the ball. Then we'd send them away again. So this takes, 1-2 minutes. Send them away again. Let's practice. Let's go. Let's go back in our traffic light game. Let me see everybody thinking about the step, squat, scoop. And 9 times out of 10, bunch of 7-year-olds, you'll increase it from maybe 40% to 90% within that time. You've then got time to move around or send coaches around if you're at club level to help people out. One thing I've found is a really, really easy way to help kids with the mechanics of it is you make sure you step round to the open side. So if they're right-handed, you step round to their left. You can then bring your right hand to the middle of the shaft, and you can actually help them through the scoop of the mechanics. Without leaning over them, without bending over them, hurting your back, you literally squat down with them and scoop. And then you drop the ball. Let's do it again together. Drop the ball. Let's do it again together. And then the kids that can't do it, again, 75, 80%, once you let go of that stick, they will do it. Make sure you always set a good example. So, for example, if you're talking, if the kids are there watching you, you're talking, you're not holding your stick one-handed. You're not standing, scooping the ball one-handed. You don't want to set an example of bad habits almost, because you want the kids to have the whole 2 hands on the sticks all the time. They're 7-year-olds, and they want to be able to control the stick, control the ball, not hurt each other. That's the main thing. Any parent that sends their kids to sports, generally to start with, they want them to have a good time without getting hurt. They want them to be safeguarded, and that safeguarding, probably the most simple form of safeguarding at a sporting thing, is to make sure they don't really have a bad injury. All right, they might get a tiny knock somehow, run into someone, whatever, but general, get poked in the throat, that kind of thing, because people are not controlling their sticks and they've been shown things that are bad habits, for example. Always try and work to start with the kids as individuals or in small groups. So from that scooping, I literally tend to just put it into a very simple line drill. Literally 2 kids one side, 2 kids the other. Show them how a line drill works. We all know, most of the kids by now know how a little relay goes back and forth with the ball. And it might sound boring to you, but to these kids that are just learning to scoop, and we're doing this in quite quick snap, 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 it's keeping them moving constantly. And they're being active. So we drop the ball far away enough, make sure it's not rolling towards the other person, so they can actually run and scoop it. Join the back of the line, how a line drill works. make quite a big emphasis on not rolling the ball towards the person scooping, because they then stand and wait for it. And that doesn't happen in lacrosse most of the time. If you're standing waiting for a ball, someone else is going to come scoop it. So we make sure we try and emulate game stuff as much as possible. So you have to run and scoop the ball. You have to move. You even have to have that little hop with the momentum into the scoop. Make sure you place your foot next to the ball. And we keep talking about those basics. And then the really, really key thing to getting the kids playing and having an idea of how to play is link it to every other invasion game that they might know. Every game where we go and score one end and we stop the other team scoring the other end. Kind of the only difference really with the lacrosse is that you can go behind the goal. Yeah, but really we've got to get the idea of attack, defense, find space, mark another player, work as a team, communicate, those basics. And if you get in the minds of kids that are newcomers to the game, it's a new skill, but it's still pretty much the same idea that you do in every other game you might have played. Basketball, football, rugby, slightly different because the ball goes backwards, but you're still trying to run to space when you have the ball. It's getting into the psyche of the kids in that way, and then they go, okay, I know what to do. Yeah, Rob, you can move it on. Thank you. So using those basic skills going forward. So session 1, in our warm-up, we've done some scooping, we've done some dodging. Yeah. So we literally, I line the kids up. I put a goal at either end. I will make a crease. I will go through some basic rules of not going in the crease. Most of the time we have no checking because we've not got that far yet. And we're working on some basic defense. We introduce attack v defense, one-on-one. The number game basically works that you have one team one side of the pitch, one team the other side. You number, if you imagine you're looking at the lacrosse pitch, a team on the far side sort of stood between the two goals, you number them from left to right, 1 to 10. And from the other side, you turn around and you face them again and you number them 1 to 10. So you've got number 1 at opposite ends, not opposite each other. When you say go, they run round their defensive goal. You tell them which goal, obviously. Run round, come to the middle, try get the ball. Now, here's a safety point. Here's a safety point. Whoever gets closest to you first, roll them the ball. Because if you leave the ball in the middle, I guarantee at some point you're going to get a head clash. All right. So if you're wearing helmets, okay, we can probably leave the ball in the middle. But if we're just introducing some kids to the game, we haven't got those resources because they're very expensive resources. Come in, whoever scoops it first, you're dodging to goal. If you don't get the ball, your job is to stop them getting to the goal. Then you can introduce, is it a good idea? Because a lot of these kids will turn around and they'll run back to the goal and try and be a goalkeeper. It's like, is that a good idea, or are you just letting that person near the goal? So you start talking about, you're introducing tactical thoughts already. Okay, if I keep this person away from the goal, they're a lot less likely to score. And you're now introducing the dodging. Okay, if I step that way, I can run back that way. Might be able to roll the ball in the goal, or I can throw the ball in the goal once we've got to the throwing. Yeah. I put a little red note here, which says if working with younger groups in particular, so if you are working with 6, 7-year-olds, there's a lot of pressure from other sports and everything they watch on the TV about winning, losing, that kind of thing. I blame the Premier League for pretty much everything that's bad about attitudes to sports, because there's just too much pressure. And when kids go to football, it's all about winning and this and that. So focus their kids' minds on doing the right thing. Even if you didn't scoop it and you didn't score, but you did a good job at defending by using your body to block them, okay, they might have got around you and scored. But even that, and you see the psyche of the child that didn't score, that had the goal score against them, quite often go from, oh man, I lost, to, all right, I did the right thing. Great. I want to do this again. And I don't mind defending, actually, because I did a good job. And then you're getting positive stuff coming away from the game. So even if they didn't score, they didn't get the ball 2-3 goes, but they did a good job defending, you're changing the psyche of that kid and they want to come back and play. And they've done something good for that session. Session 2, let's review scooping. Who can remember scooping, how to hold a stick? Who can remember some dodging? Who can remember what attack and defense is? How do we stop people getting to the goal? How do we get around people? And then I found throwing. I used to try and teach throwing and catching at the same time, and it was just far too much, far too much for kids' brains most of the time. So what I've done is broken it down to, let's just focus on the throwing, because if you read in the blue there, if the throw's good, the catching becomes easier. And then as a coach, you would then be able to spot the kids who actually make an effort at catching it without you doing anything. Because once you get the kids throwing it well and the ball is flying in the right place, you can spot the kids who might have some good eye coordination, who are already into ball sports, where they might be using those skills and they can use kind of cross activity skills. Rob, you could do throwing. You could do it the other way round. I just found that this works. And I'm certainly not saying don't do it, do it the other way. But throwing, I find if we can throw the ball well with the stick and we can make it go in the right direction, I often get the kids to throw it in more of a rainbow shape, a bit of a loop to start with. Often because I don't have helmets and gloves when I'm teaching at schools, for example. So we're trying to cut out head injuries with a ball that's flying flat at someone's face. So we're trying to sort of get a rainbow shape as we throw it, leave the stick a little bit higher so the ball comes out the top in a rainbow shape. And then I'll make a point of, if you make it do that, your person the other side can see the ball easier. They've got more time to perhaps try and catch it. Then we bring in the number game again. We can make this a 2v2 this time, Walt. And then we've got to make a pass. And then we'll see which kids might start using and having ideas of defending and attacking with another player. You got a teammate now who can run to space, who can move away from the person marking, who can mark somebody else. And then session 3, review 1 and 2, and then move on to the catching. Okay, we did throwing last time. Let's try and do some catching. We all got good at throwing it, or we need to do a bit more work on it. And then again, we use the number game, and we can just add more and more people in the number game as they become more proficient. The number game the kids like, because they get a lot of work, a lot of intense work, and then a bit of a rest, and then intense work and a bit of a rest. So you haven't got the mess of 10 beginners trying to run around from one ball. Often put a limit on one player from each team go for the ball so they can get to scoop it quickly. And so I think that was it really for the sessions. This is just a very basic set of sessions to get a bunch of beginners to a decent enough level that they could have some kind of game and enjoyment out of one, maybe 2-3 sessions. If you've got an hour at your local lacrosse club, could you maybe squeeze 2 sessions in, sessions 1 and 2 in, and then have a game?
That's been good.
Yeah.
Well, let's start chatting, because I'm going to throw in a question. Others can throw their hands up, and we can have a chat now. Like I put in the chat, I've often tried to teach them how to catch for the throw, and maybe that was the wrong way around. When you do the throw, do you just say to them, just throw it like 10 meters in front of you in a rainbow? Then they just throw.
I try and spread them out so they're pretty far apart. At least 10 meters. At least. Quite often I work on playgrounds in primary schools, so you've got the width of a netball court almost. Yeah. I've even used bigger distances, but really move the hand away from the top, get it in the middle, make sure both your hands are at shoulder level when you throw, and when you finish, that classic push with the top, pull with the bottom, finish at the elbow, and the most important thing is keeping those hands high, because every single time they don't follow that, the ball will go on the floor. You might get 1 out of 50 that won't. because they pull it down, the stick points down, the ball goes down. They pull the bottom hand towards the belly, the ball goes down. So it's getting that hand and pushing it and keeping that stick high so the ball comes out in that rainbow projection.
Yeah, there's so many players who are throwing with their hands below their shoulders, and it just always hits the floor.
Yeah.
Well, you got a question? Dive in.
Can you hear me? I'm not sure if I have my voice on. Is it on there?
Yep.
So what we do, I really enjoyed that. Very similar. What we do in Canada is they start playing box lacrosse when they're 5.
Yep.
Not everybody. And so when they're 5, 6, 7, they use a soft ball. So they use a tennis ball, and they actually have a little rubber ball that's flat.
Mm-hmm.
They don't use lacrosse balls until they're 8.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're little, we use just tennis balls or these little rubber soft balls. And when you talked about the 2-man game, we don't introduce. So in Canada, there's 2 divisions below 10 years old. So there's 5, 6, 7, and then 8, 9, 10. And that 8, 9, 10 is U11. So until they get to U13, that's when they implement the pick and roll.
Mm-hmm.
So anything below 10 years old, we don't do pick and roll with them. We just teach them to play defense, teach them to shoot, teach them, like you're talking about, spacing and more or less spacing. I call it, what they do is when they're little is they play what I call honeybee lacrosse. So they'll literally all follow the ball just like a honeybee if they're playing a game. So, but anyway, in Canada, that's what we do. We don't implement the 2-man game until they're 11. And then even when they're 11 and 12, they actually play very good box lacrosse at 11 and 12 in Canada. It's called Pee Wee or U11 or U13. But the reality is, in a game, you might see maybe 3 successful pick and rolls a period. So we're teaching it to them, but are they actually accomplishing it?
Yep.
Just the higher level kids will, not all the kids, but we still teach it to them because the theory is they have to learn it. So that's all I thought I'd add is that's how with the 2-man game we don't.
Yeah, I think
get into it till they're 11 or 12.
When I referenced your 2-man game, well, I certainly weren't thinking about implementing it to any of these kids that I teach now.
Yeah.
I was just trying to kind of make a little bit of a line between the two. You know, we're playing 2-on-2, so you got a kind of idea of that. I'm not talking about picking a roll and a move away. I'm just talking about getting the idea of there's 2 of you against 2 of you, make space, defend, attack, that kind of stuff.
Mike, what about because once you've done those kind of basics, how quickly do you get the kids just running at goal and shooting? Because a lot of kids just want to score goals. Do you do anything like that, or does that make it? I don't know. Thoughts on just running.
Yeah. You know, the next step would be definitely let's do some shooting because we need to learn how to shoot the ball. Because what you'll find certainly is a lot of kids they're carrying a stick and then they'll try and shovel it forward into the goal. So it's kind of okay. We can roll it so we don't hit anybody. Again, well, I don't. The first kids that I teach. We teach a thing called pop lacrosse mainly in the schools, which is plastic. Everything's plastic. Sticks are plastic. Balls are kind of plastic. They're not hard lacrosse balls. And I've used tennis balls loads of times, which it's kind of makes your catching. You have to have really soft hands because it's a plastic ball in a plastic stick. So to be quite successful, you need to really have soft hands at that. When you get to club, Rob, obviously we've got those softer foam balls that go with the England lacrosse kind of sticks, which are good to use. Now we've got the Swax Lax balls that are coming out, which are like big hacky sacks, which are great to use as well. They don't roll everywhere, and they're easier to catch because they move slower. They're not as hard as a lacrosse ball. But in terms of shooting, yes, introduce shooting when you're throwing. If you like, because it's the same kind of action, but you're going downwards. So you can choose to maybe add that to session 3, catching and then shooting.
And then I do have a question about that numbers game you played. So you've got 1 to 10, 1 to 10.
Yeah.
It's 1v1, and then you said you also introduced 2v2. So I was saying number 1 and number 2, and out they come.
Yeah.
So I'm jumped ahead a little bit. You're now doing, obviously, because your group were playing on Saturday.
Yeah.
Do you then just do what we do in seniors? Like you go 3v3, 4v4, 5v5? What, are you progressing it like that?
At a training Bromley Lacrosse training session, it's slightly different. I'm sort of at the school type stage. We stay with that number game until we can perhaps do a 5v5, and then we can start. Or I mean, I've been doing 6v6, 7v7, just because you're trying to get everybody to play. And if you've got a decent teacher or a member of staff with you, for example, you can split them so you can have 2 games going. That means everybody's playing. At Bromley, I would tend not to use the number game. It will be playing we will play games because we've got a much bigger space, and we will keep people in certain areas. And the kids that come there now are a bit, they're a bit more skilled now to be able to play those games. We can run through drills. But they all started pretty much out in that fashion. And the reason why that number game, I think, is so successful is when you really ham it up to them and say, come on, and you make it really exciting, or the other kids on the side get excited for their team, and then and then you need to break it down. Okay, it doesn't matter if you don't score. It doesn't matter if you don't score, as long as you've done good defense, for example. And that's the real key to them going, okay, I really like this game. I want to do this. And the amount of times kids have just gone, no, lacrosse is my favourite sport. The amount of times I've heard it. I mean, they change their mind constantly, but it works. It does work, but it does really depend on the presentation and how almost excitable you are about it. If you get a bunch of new kids come down and you're going, oh yeah, what should we do? Okay, hi everyone, welcome. Be like, hi, welcome, come. Not overexcited because you don't want to be bearing down their face. But when they do something good, you kind of go, oh, that was great, well done. Okay, get it right next time. You got it wrong. Let's get it right. And it's a lot about encouragement. New people, it's about encouragement, and they've done something right. Get it right and tell them they've done it right.
Have you had any kids who maybe also sort of playing rugby as well, who come in and they are a little bit too physical, and how have you sort of taught them about what you can do legally to defend, and you can't just go grab them and chuck them on the floor?
Luckily, I haven't. I've got a few rugby players. Again, they're not overly physical because, again, the age group of rugby players I have, a lot of them play touch rugby still.
Right.
So,
but are you giving them like the way you defend like mixed? You're just get in front of them.
I know,
are you having a stick apart?
Push, you give them a bump with your gloves. You can get physical. Just don't cross check, because that's the one. But then you also get this, which then becomes difficult, and it's about having the balance. But yeah, no, absolutely tell them to get physical. Use the body, push them away. But the main essence is to block and make sure the person doesn't get past you.
Yeah.
Done a lot of work on trying to get low and push hips, for example. Done a lot of work without sticks, pushing hips with just hands to get used to just stopping people getting past you, which is the main. Once you do that, they'll end up throwing the ball, and then that's where a lot of the time the mistake will come, certainly at a younger age group.
Yeah. Well, do you want to add something in there?
Another thing that we do with the little kids, which you're talking about when we introduce contact, is they're not allowed to have contact. But we teach them to put their hands together. I don't know if you did mention that. So when they're little, they have to put their hands together on their stick.
Completely.
Like that, and then equal pressure.
Right.
So they're allowed to use equal pressure. They're not allowed to hit or to push. But so that teaches them body position, and it also teaches them, of course, in box cross you can cross check. So that's an initiation of cross checking. But if you teach them to put their hands together and just use equal pressure, so they're not, obviously they can't do that in field lacrosse, but it's just a way to teach them to defend.
And there's cues in
It's blocking. It's the same thing. It's blocking somebody getting past you, isn't it? That
Right.
equal pressure. Someone's trying to run past you. You step up. You're stepping away. You've got equal pressure. You're not allowing that person to get past you.
Because in field lacrosse, you can use your stick and use equal pressure with your stick at a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're teaching them to put their hands together and putting their fists on the person's hip and just equal pressure, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
There's a relevant question just at this point, just coming in from Emily. A question to you, Walt. At what age is contact introduced in Canada? So what age do you move on from that equal pressure?
Again, it's different because in box lacrosse they can cross check, right? And so, but in the first age group, which is 5 to 7, there's just equal pressure, no contact. And then the second division, which is 7 to 8, they actually start playing games and full on games, but they can't slash, and so they can't body check, but they can play more lacrosse. So I guess the answer to that would be around 10. At 11 years old, they can so U13, which is 11, 12, they're playing full on box lacrosse at U13. So 11 and 12 years old, they're playing full contact, power play, short man, raggers, chasers, like everything at the full level.
Thank you. Mike, is your group a mixed gender group, or are you just running with boys?
No, mixed gender.
So what we're doing with the hands...
We play boys' rules generally because I find it safer to start with if we're using a hard ball when we play at the training session. We've got helmets. Everyone's got helmets on. We're all learning to check still. We've got gloves on. If we are pushing hips, we've got gloves on. And to be quite honest with you, the girls actually love the rough and tumble.
Yeah, because that was going to be my thing about how do we, what from what you've said already tonight is going to be perfect for a mixed gender group, or what do we have to adapt if we're going to have, if there's a 50-50 split, and et cetera.
But I mean, if it's a new group that have come to your club, I would be at the point of just introducing lacrosse with the basic skills, and we're not introducing contact. We want to get you can't play the game without the basic skills, and that's why I kind of like pop lacrosse, because pop lacrosse teaches all the basic skills without the general worry about getting checked. But also it does teach team skills, because the kids have only got 4 seconds with the ball. They've got to find space. They've got to pass the ball. There's a lot of people will have a lot to say against pop lacrosse, for example, but as a general activity to get kids infused in lacrosse, it is really good, and it's accessible.
Yeah, because Pete Compton's pinball, that's basically pop lacrosse, but with more of a fieldy junior stick, isn't it?
Use it. You can play pop lacrosse with a field stick, exactly the same. It's great.
4-second rule.
Either way, the only reason why pop lacrosse is because I advocate is because I go to a lot of schools, and that's the best way to access it in a school, because it's the cheapest way. A set of sticks for a school is 400 quid or whatever it is. Aside from a set of mini full-on lacrosse sticks that cost a lot more money.
A lot more money.
Yeah. So yeah, I would just go set of beginners. Let's go with the very, very basics and try and play some pop lacrosse. If you have 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds on the ball, hopefully everybody might be able to get a touch within a game, because the ball's going to spend a bit more time moving around the team.
So if anyone's got any more questions, jump in, raise your hand, or put something in the chat. As I said at the top, I want to see if we can put together some stuff to share with clubs. And Mike, you're going to send me those videos, and I think those videos, if they what I think they're going to be just perfect, just to watch that. Oh yeah, let's do this. So then, if a club, or when a club has a dozen new people turn up of any age, of any gender.
Yeah.
They're not making up as they go along. And we've got some good stuff because obviously there's the England Lacrosse pack that was sent out a couple of years ago with 7 or 8, about a dozen different drills in it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking maybe the thing that is before that, the sort of that first experience of lacrosse, we want it to be a good one and a safe one and a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. If you give me the similar folder to upload them into, I can put them in there. That'd probably be the easiest way.
Yeah, I'll sort it out. I'll sort it out tomorrow. Right. Has anyone got any other questions about basically about this whole thing about let's get ourselves ready for what we hope is going to be the increased interest in our game leading up to the Olympics? Because that's what this session is really about, so that clubs are ready when we get those players wanting to come and play. For those who aren't on the seminar calls, we have been discussing like what do we do about equipment. How many clubs have got 10, 12, 14 spare sticks? So we know that's a problem in some parts of the region.
Mm-hmm.
No easy answer for that one, unfortunately. But we will have to solve that problem because we hope the kids are going to want to come and play, or even the young adults are going to want to come and play.